Greetings, everyone. It's Dr. Mordecai, and thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Discovering Your Mission with Dr. Mordecai. On today, I have a treat for you. A special guest, Dr. Amelia Parnell, serves as the Vice President of Research and Policy for NASPA. She is also the author of the book, You Are a Data Person. We'll talk about that book here in just a moment with Dr. Parnell. A proud product of Florida A&M University, originally from Lake City, Florida, Dr. Parnell has had an amazing story of triumph and challenges, and she shares a bit of that story with us on today. Without further ado, my interview with Dr. Amelia Parnell. Greetings, everyone. It's Dr. Mordecai, and I am here with the amazing, I've been looking forward to this conversation. I am a fan of Dr. Amelia Parnell, the work that she does, the value that she adds to our community, and I am here with her latest book, You Are a Data Person, Strategies for Using Analytics on Campus. Everyone, Dr. Amelia Parnell, how are you doing, Amelia?
I'm doing great, and I have been looking forward to this conversation as well. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Well, let's just jump right into it. The book has been on fire. I learned about it online. I was amazed by its release, and when we saw each other at the NASPA National Conference, you signed my book. So let me just call this out right now, is I have a signed copy of this book. And I would encourage everyone to get their own signed copy of their books at the conferences. But Amelia, why? What was it that said, I've got to do this book? Now's the time to do this book.
Yeah. So I would honestly say the book idea, I did not know that it was a perfect time, but I knew when it was the right time. After I had probably been working at NASPA for about 5 years or so. And prior to working at NASPA, I worked at another association, the Association for Institutional Research. And so those who work in higher ed settings, they're very familiar with that IR office, or the professionals who are really the dedicated team of individuals who are responsible for mandatory reporting and even ad hoc reporting. So I got to learn a lot about that office, that function, the professionals who work in it, and then to go from there to NASPA and talk with a lot of professionals in student affairs who've been asked to use data, produce data, and explain things with data. And honestly, I kept hearing about a lot of the strain and a lot of the deterring things about data. So sometimes it's we don't have enough data people, or it's I'm not a data person. Mordecai does our assessment stuff, or John does our analytics stuff. And I just honestly got to a place where I was like, it's pretty obvious that the future of higher education is going to require us to continually use data to make decisions. But that doesn't mean that it has to be something daunting or just really burdensome. And I wanted to write something that would be a little bit practical, a little bit relatable, and very inspiring. And so I knew it was the right time when I had just gone. It was, matter of fact, it was in the lobby of the NASPA annual conference in 2019. And I was talking with the editor that I work with, David Brightman, and we were just chopping it up. We usually meet once a year and talk about whatever I'm reading, whatever he's reading, and pitch ideas. And I said, I think this is the time for a book about data, but a different take on it, because I just sat in a session with somebody who told me that they are not a data person. And I want to convince people that we all have something to contribute. And so I knew it was the right time after having heard yet one more revelation about somebody who said they hadn't taken a stats class in years and how they can't do data stuff because. And I was like, but you are a data person. And from there, it just kind of took off.
One of the things I really appreciated about the book, and it was I'll tell you, for anyone that has not read this book yet, from the moment I picked it up, it was hard to put down because it's so practical. It's so practical. And I'm sure that was an intentional decision in writing this book, the practicality of it. So let me ask you this question, Amelia. For someone who has not read the book yet, what would you say is the reason why they need to read it? Because if they're saying, hey, I'm not someone that quote unquote works with data in my current portfolio, why do you still say this still adds value? You need to know the information, the knowledge in this piece of work.
I guess I'd probably say a couple reasons. One is that it does, and of course there's always going to be a point where you need to update something. So there need to be a volume 2, volume 3. But for right now, I think it's current. It talks about current issues in higher education, a lot of current issues related to what students are experiencing in higher education. So one reason to read the book is just to stay current on what the conversations have entailed. There's something about this moment that we're in. Even the epilogue talks about the need for change management because we're in the middle of a pandemic. So if for no other reason, read the book, I think, because you just want to see what the current conversations are about. The second reason would probably be to say that this is not a methods book. This is not a book that's going to talk to you about how to do regression analysis or how to code themes and qualitative data, but instead how you can identify some skill sets that you already have. And so if there's someone who's saying, I don't know that I see myself using data every day in my work, I'm going to say you probably do, even without realizing it. And the way the framework in the book lays it out is that there are 6 core areas in which we all probably have something to contribute. So the second reason would be because I think it's going to show the reader that they actually have some very valuable skill sets that they're already doing. So it's a very asset-based frame. And the third is because I think it emphasizes the need for ongoing collaboration with colleagues. And so I think read it because it'll be a nice way to give back to your colleagues, and we have to work together. So it's almost like the favor that you do for your colleague that you're going to be meeting with later to show them that you're looking for ways to work with them in a more integrated fashion. So I'd say read it because you want to be current on issues, and read it because it's going to show you that you already have something to offer, and read it the third reason because your colleagues will thank you. I hope they would, and just say you got something in common to discuss.
Love it. I love it. I love it. One of the opportunities I want to take in this time that we have together, I'm sure that there's someone that's watching this, listening to this, and they have a desire to write a book, yet they are unaware of the creative process. I'm sure you had your own creative process. What wisdom could you share with someone who is thinking within them, hey, I want to add value, I want to write a book, but I don't even know where to begin? What advice would you have to that person?
Mm-hmm. What I would say is if you have the desire to write the book, write the book. And I find that in the bigger scheme of things, those who might be hesitant, they might say, well, there's a book that's already out there about this. It's totally common to go into a bookstore and see lots of books on a particular topic. It's totally fine to have multiple books about gardening, in Barnes and Noble. It's okay to have multiple books about anything, really. So I would say write the book because you have a unique voice to add to the chorus, of what's going on. The second reason is because you've probably gotten to a place where you have a lot that you have to say. If you find that you are in a place where you have the same conversations over and over, and you find that you're answering questions in a way that gives you more depth, then I think there's a lot there. In terms of my creative process, I will not glamorize this thing and make it sound like, oh, the words just flowed onto the page and it was, soft music playing, and in a matter of moments, the whole thing was done. Like, no, I actually had many moments when I was like, is this enough here? Should I go further with this? Is somebody really going to resonate with this? Is this the right example? And I don't say that from a place of self-doubt so much as to wanting to really have it be a little bit fine-tuned to the reader and it be something that they don't want to put down. So I think the creative process, it starts with an idea. And if when you have it, you feel like, hey, I'm looking around and I think I have a unique something to offer to the conversation, then go ahead and do it. I would say don't be deterred at all if you're thinking, what about the other people who've written on the topic? Well, they don't have your voice. And so write it anyway. And the third is try to imagine the person on the other end reading it. So I think there's a huge opportunity here to make sure you distill your content in a place where you're not the only person who understands it. So at some point you write the book because you want people to read it. And if they get to page 1 and they're like, I don't understand what this means, then you probably need to, rinse and repeat. The second piece of advice is a great editor helps out a lot. So don't feel as though you need to do this all on your own. If you do it independently, still find a great editor, somebody who can read the whole thing and give you some real-time feedback. And the third is, just keep writing. Best piece of advice I've ever received is just keep writing. If one day you can only get a half a page, write the half a page. Next day you might get 3 pages. Just keep writing.
Keep writing. I love it. I love it. There's so much wisdom here. Okay, so this awesome, amazing person that you are, have you always been this awesome, amazing person? I guess the question would really be, where are you from and how did you get to this point? Did you always know that this was going to be your journey, that you would be writing a book one day and that you would be working for NASPA one day and that you would be doing all these amazing things? Just tell us a little bit about who you are, Amelia.
Yeah. Dr. Mordecai, first off, you're good for the ego. You say this awesome, amazing person, can we just get this? Is this being recorded? Just so I can send this home to my family? I'm just kidding. So I say, honestly, I got my start. I grew up in Lake City, Florida. So that's a very rural area. If you know Florida, it's about halfway between Tallahassee and Jacksonville. It's where I-10 and I-75 meet if you're ever traveling in that area. And growing up on a farm, it was very much an opportunity for me to learn some things that at the time I didn't see as things that would be like instilled in me. But later on in life, I see that very clearly. One of which is learning how to share. And so growing up on a farm with all manner of crops and vegetables and fruits and, I'd say cows and chickens and all that stuff, we didn't have neighbors that were right next door in most instances. We had a couple neighbors, but for the most part, if you had some extra eggs or you had some snap peas, you would share those. And in return, they would give you a bushel of corn. They would give you advice about what to do here or there. And so that was just common practice to say, go take these things to your neighbor and pick up the other thing. And it also instilled some time management, certain crops being grown at certain times of year. And so chores, before school, after school, that type of thing. And I don't want to just sum it up and say hard work, but instead the intentionality of planning. And so to be a good farmer, you have to know cycles of the year. You have to know a lot about agriculture. You have to be able to organize your day and your resources in a way that sustains you throughout the year. And so to go from there to FAMU, which is where I spent my undergrad experience, I truly can say it was like night and day. I knew about college from watching A Different World, and it was a show that changed my whole perception. From the day I watched the first episode, I knew I wanted to go to college. I didn't know that Hillman might have so many parallels to FAMU. I didn't understand the depth of the Black college experience. But going there, it was like going from night and day. I grew up in a very rural environment. I'd say that my high school was predominantly white, but then to go to an HBCU, to be surrounded by lots of artifacts of culture and examples of legacies of really intelligent people, successful people, and to be immersed in a learning environment in which my identities were celebrated and affirmed, it just put me on a trajectory where nobody told me that I couldn't do the things that I wanted to do. It was expected that you would try and go after your biggest, boldest dreams. So I'd say my family always supported us and told me and my twin sister that we could try and do anything. And then that got propelled by going to college. And then from there, just being placed in some situations where if I take those principles of being very thoughtful in planning and very strategic in how I use my resources, be it time, money, whatever, that with the right approach, anything is possible. And so it doesn't make me naive, but
no, but
yeah.
Was it a seamless path for you? So from the point that you finished at FAMU, did you already at that point, was that college university experience for you where you truly refined and you knew your pathway at that point?
Oh.
Or did you essentially have to go through a few different experiences to get to where you are now?
But I'm chuckling because it was the exact opposite.
Okay.
Some people have a clear path like this. Mine looked like this. It was like jagged, rugged, like all over the place. I truly can tell you my undergrad major and master's are in business administration. I had one singular goal. I was going to corporate America. That was it. I enrolled in a 5-year MBA program that was truly cultivating talented individuals to go to corporate America. And so my path couldn't have been more different. So my first real professional job that I think was substantial after college was actually working at FAMU as an internal auditor. And that's what actually changed the trajectory. Because before that, I said, it's only a matter of time. I'm going to probably end up going to some Fortune 500 company, and that's going to be it. Well, when I started working on a campus, I started learning about how a campus worked, 2 things happened. I realized that there was an operational side of a campus that I'd never seen because I was a student, and all the principles of business that you would see in a corporation were there in a university setting. You're still managing millions of dollars. You still have a client base. You still have to manage communications, legal issues, all that kind of stuff. And the other is that I realized how much the educational aspect of the whole enterprise appealed to me. I like the idea of learning. I like the business of learning. And I didn't know that was going to take me to NASPA, but I knew it planted a seed that I couldn't shake. And so then that's what pushed me to go into doctoral study and actually learn about higher education, the administration of it. And even within that still wasn't a clear path to NASPA because I did 7 years of policy work at the state level for the legislative offices in Tallahassee. And so that couldn't have been more different. And there were many times when I was like, where's all this going? How does it all fit together? And then I took a stint in teaching as an adjunct for a few years at Florida State, and I loved that too. And so honestly, if I had to say, all the things leading up to right now, NASPA is actually finally that really nice intersection. So it's a little bit of policy, it's a little bit of research. I now get plenty of opportunities to do public speaking and a little bit of guest lectures. And so it's kind of all starting to come together now. But if you had talked to me a decade ago, I would have said, I'm on the journey. I don't know where I'm going, but it's fun, but I don't have a clear path story like many others. I'm actually kind of glad for it. I think it would be far less exciting if it had been.
And it certainly has added more substance to your journey and who you are. I'm sure that there's been defining moments along that journey. And for the listeners and watchers of this, they themselves could be listening to your story and saying, that resonates with me based off of something she could share, that Amelia could share. What were those defining moments that you would say brought you to this point in time, that gave you that substance, that gave you that strength that you needed to make it to this point?
You know what? If I had to think about a common theme across all of them, many of the defining moments involve me giving of my time or my, I say talent, something that I have to offer somebody else. And the return on that, usually the feedback, maybe visually being able to see the impact, those are usually defining moments for me. And I'd say the first is when I worked for 3 summers in the FAMU Upward Bound program. Okay. I didn't know anything about Upward Bound. I didn't know the federal funding that was attached to it or the mission of it. But I knew that when I worked as a literature and composition instructor with students who were coming from nearby rural communities to Tallahassee, and they were there to learn about what college was going to be like, and I was the one that was facilitating the conversation, I saw so much of myself in their stories because I grew up on a farm. And all the questions they asked about what it was like to go to college or what it would be like, I experienced that because my parents didn't go to college. And so that planted this idea, like, I don't know what this is, but I kind of like this element of me sharing what I know. So that was pivotal. I didn't know that it was going to lead to something else, but I didn't even realize that that was kind of connected to student services, but that was something. It was a turning point. It was a pivotal moment. I'd say the second is the opportunity to teach at Florida State. So I finished my doc work, but I didn't have a lot of experience teaching at the graduate level. And my major professor and mentor at the time said, hey, I want to give you an opportunity to be the instructor of record. And that helped me cultivate my ability to explain things, to plan a learning journey for a whole semester, to anticipate needs that students would have. And just hearing the feedback from them about that method of teaching that I was using, each week I try to refine something. I'd always ask them for feedback. So me giving of my time to teach them through the class was actually more rewarding because it helped me fine-tune some skills that I still use now, and I think that was great. And I think the third is honestly this book, giving this book to the field as a resource, and this kind of collection of stories and reflections and a little bit of predictions is my way to really hear back from the field about whether the things I've been working on actually really are on par with where I feel like we're going. And it's been a wonderful journey. I'm overwhelmed. Like you said, you found out about the book online. I did not know that people were taking pictures with the book and they would post them on LinkedIn. And I never asked anybody to do it, but it was wonderful to have people say that they found it to be useful. So I think the through line for me, the most pivotal moments for me, always involve me giving of something that I know or I have, and seeing that end up impacting people in a way that's positive, and that will keep me going for years.
I love it. There are times in your journey, I'm sure, to where you needed to fill your cup. Perhaps there's some wisdom that you can share with us now. What advice do you have for someone as they're on the journey? They have those challenging times. They may hit those brick walls, or the journey may be taking them on a turn, right, that they didn't necessarily account for. What did Amelia Parnell do to fill your cup to help rejuvenate yourself along this journey?
That's a great question. I love this interview. This is one of the best conversations I've had, like, period. So 3 things come to mind. I'd say find a group that you can be in regardless of where you are in your journey. So, and what I mean by that, I don't mean like find a group of really great friends. It hopefully could be friends, it could be family, but somebody or some group of people that you can be around wherever you are. So you may have high aspirations and you're not quite meeting all your goals, but when you get around this particular person, it could be family, it could be friends, it could be a colleague, they're not expecting you to achieve everything all at once. And they will give you the kind of soft place to land and listen to you when you're saying, like, I'm writing this book, but I'm stuck on chapter 3. And they'll say, let's go get some ice cream. And it's kind of like their way of reminding you that life is going to go on and it's okay. So I think it's just good to have some type of relational connection to somebody who's going to encourage you to just, keep it at a reasonable level, put it like that. The second is to take the break. I know that being high achieving or being highly aspirational in your pursuits will keep you on this need to feel like you have to be on the grind, this rise and grind mentality, this idea that, I don't sleep, I burn the candle at both ends. Take the break. I don't know that we need to do everything as fast as we might prescribe. And in the book, there's a piece of advice that says, do not rush. That was one of the 5 data rules. So take the break. That's separate from talking to these friends and connections that I mentioned. The break is for you. That's individual. That's to say, even if you could do everything on your to-do list today, cut it in half and do some of it tomorrow. Take the break because life is still happening, around you. And the third is something that I give as advice to everybody who asks me this question. keep a journal. And I would say a different take on it, which is what I do, is a video journal. And I have done this since at least 10 years ago. Turn the camera on, and I usually do it while I'm like making dinner or something like that. And I ask myself, or pretend someone has asked me 2 questions. 1, what's going on? And 2, how do you feel about it? And usually I just talk, and I might be, stirring up some grits, and I'm like, I'm doing this interview today with Dr. Mordecai. I'm excited about it. I know he's going to ask me some questions. I'm not sure about that. I also got this work thing that's going on. I'm also trying to learn how to grill for the first time, and I'm taking Spanish lessons, and I feel like all this stuff is happening. This is real time. This is what's happening. And then I'll just say, I don't know where I'm going with all of this stuff, but I'm excited about life and what it is. Or other times it's like, I'm nervous that my Spanish lesson tomorrow, I am not prepared for it, whatever it is. And I usually just hit stop and I just save it. And that's it. I don't go back to it at all. Like, I don't go back and rewatch it until at least maybe 6 months, 9 months. And 2 things usually happen. I will go back and watch that. I'm like, I totally forgot I had that podcast with Dr. Mordecai where I said I was nervous about my Spanish lesson. And lo and behold, the Spanish lesson was fine. And the second thing is I remind myself, keep doing this, because it's the literal reminder that if you take the break, if you keep living life, if you find a group of people that you can be around who will give you that soft place to land, life is going to be okay. And that most times the moment that you're in might feel overwhelming and it's not quite what you expected, but just keep doing, just keep writing, just keep swimming, just keep doing this thing. But the video reminder or the journal reminder is your evidence that you can actually achieve, because it's really easy to be stuck in the moment and you'll forget that you probably have overcome several things, but it was 3 years ago and you don't remember those things. The journal is your visual reminder that you actually can do it. So that's my recipe. I got a great group of close friends. I definitely believe in taking a vacation. I'm not the person who goes on vacation and still checks email. And I've been doing a video journal for the last decade.
Wow.
That's the secret sauce.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I would love to keep going along on this interview. We're now towards the end of this interview, and what I like to do at this point in the in the session is just to ask about your personal mission statement. And so right now, Dr. Amelia Parnell, please share with us your mission statement and why and what is your mission?
So this is a great question, and I actually prepared for this because I knew I had written this down. I took a class some time back, and I refined it over time. But this is the date of, I believe, November 7th, 2016. And so the version of my personal mission statement then, which I think is mostly still true now, is that I want to tell real stories via research, film, pictures, and narration that amuse, educate, and inspire others while broadening their understanding of societal issues. And what I would say there's a lot of room to grow. I got the book, so that's the narration part. The amusing part is this really, I want people to remember that, life is worth living and, to not take everything so seriously. But I do have a big goal sometime in the future. I would love to shoot a really great documentary, some type of film, but I want to inspire people with the stories, and I want to broaden their understanding of what's happening in the world and do it in a way that utilizes my unique voice and brings people together to have the conversations that we need to have.
Dr. Amelia Parnell, author of You Are a Data Person, Strategies for Using Analytics on Campus. Thank you so much for joining us today for Discovering Your Mission with Dr. Mordecai. I've enjoyed my time with you.
Me as well. Thank you again for the invitation.
Dr. Parnell, once again, thank you so much for your time and wisdom shared. At this point in the episode, I'd like to share with you my 3 key takeaways from this interview. However, I encourage you to identify your key takeaways, elements of this interview that will support you along your journey, but I'd like to share with you my 3. Number 1, in regards to writing her book, You Are a Data Person, Dr. Parnell says, if you desire to write a book, write the book. You bring a uniqueness and voice and experiences that will add value to others. I was encouraged by that. Secondly, she says the most defining moments in her life came when she gave of her time and talent. It's brought her to this part in her journey thus far, and I'm sure it will take her much further. Last, certainly not least, I was just astounded, amazed by her video diary. She says the evidence, we must have evidence for what we have achieved. And she talked about how she used video diary as a means in which to do that, to talk about her fears, her challenges, what's on her mind for that particular day, watch at another time, reflect on just how far she's come, and elements in which she can learn from her own journey and remind herself of what she's achieved. Amazing, amazing, amazing tool and opportunity there that I plan to use in my own path. With that said, Dr. Amelia Parnell, thank you. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I certainly enjoyed making it for you, hopefully to support you along your journey and your pathway. I look forward to seeing you soon at itsdrmordecai.com.